Hello, everybody. We're back. Janessa Rose, episode 9. And I got a giant third eye open. It's a pimple. Not my real third eye. Giant third eye. I got a zip code and everything. Can't even deal with this guy. Today we're going to be discussing the true self and the ego. We've all heard Kanye's song, Ego. A lot of people don't really understand what the ego is. Disclaimer, this is all how I see things, how I perceive things, and how I break things down for myself. So that way I can make a rational decision on what's what and what's important. At the end of the day, we're going to be talking about what I like to call what I like to think of as the true self versus our false identity or our created ego. Let's start with the ego. Most of the time we believe that we are this idea of what we are. We're the body. Like I'm Janessa and I'm Puerto Rican and I have curly hair and I'm light skinned, and I'm this and I'm that, and like all my ideas of who I am as a self ever since I was a kid, those things are a part of my identification and how I see myself. Anything that threatens those concepts and those ideas of who we are, who we're supposed to be, that threatens the ego. That causes for the ego to feel like, whoa, I know you're not trying to play me because I'm this and I'm that and you can't do this and you that. It doesn't allow us, the ego doesn't allow us to allow other people to make mistakes when at the cost of us, at the expense of us. The ego is what often feels violated by others. The ego is the things that everybody feels is valid. We all have this sense of it, I don't want anybody mistreating me and I don't want this and I don't want that and whatever it is. And for the most part those are valid things. Nobody really wants those things. But it's the ego that is bruised by those things and threatened by those things. Because the true self knows that it's independent of anything anyone does to them. And the true self knows that no matter what's being done by others, it's yourself that gives it power. That gives that power to other people to say, you know what, they hurt me or they did this or I don't like that. And it's hard. It's not easy. The ego doesn't die easily. All right. So what happens is we're raised according to society standards. Most of the people that will be watching this were probably raised according to society standards. You would have to be successful. You're successful if you have money. If you have money, you should look a certain way. You should be with a certain crowd. You should be revered in a certain light or in a certain respect. And that's all ego, right? Because the ego feels entitled. It feels like it deserves those things because of what it has, because of its living up to the standard, the status quo of what would be, I guess, acceptable. And not even because I'm just speaking in that circumstance, I'm just speaking about people who revere, property, prestige and shit like that as important. But then there's people who still have huge ego and they don't have any money. And that too a lot could be like a person I felt like wrongs were done to them. And instead of saying, you know what, they happened in the past, they happened when those people were under different states, state of minds, or, it's hard for them to get over it. Like it could have happened years ago and that person is still hurt as if it just happened today or a second ago or right in the now. And the ego is what is pushing you to feel that way, basically. So the ego is not separate from yourself, though. It is a part of yourself. It's like I said, it's the idea of your identity and who you are. The true self, let's go to the true self. Now, the true self is more subconscious. I look at my true self as my soul. Like, although I know that, like, I like being popular, I like being cool, I like being known, I like being involved in all the hip, cool shit, my ego was always that, and still is a lot of the times. So my true self is what prompts me to do what I know is in harmony with like my one self. Like, I feel in harmony. My true self is like, you don't need to do this. My true self is constantly telling me, like, you don't need to do certain things to be accepted. My true self is like, you don't need to lie, or you don't need to this, or you don't need to that. My true self is constantly pushing me to do things that I would fear, in other words, or that anyone would fear. My true self is constantly jolting me to push for more. Okay? And when my ego becomes threatened by that, and I start to feel the feelings of fear of success, fear of failure, fear of change, when I start to feel those things come, I know that that's the threats to my ego, because my ego's like, it wants to justify all the things that it thinks. So I learned to separate them from, like, the ego's on this side, the true self's on this side, and then there's like a consciousness in my eyes, like, that says, okay, well, what are you gonna pick? What's right? Sometimes I go with the ego, sometimes I go with the true self, but neither here nor there. It's separate. They're separate things. So your ego basically is just, it's lying to you most of the time. It's justifying and lying to you to keep you in that comfortable zone, to say, I'm this type of person, I'm this, and that's just the way I am, and that's just the way I'm always gonna be. And what you don't realize is when you approach things like that in life, when you approach yourself like that in life, there's hardly any room for growth, because you've already set it up in your mind that this is just the way I am and this is the way it's always going to be. But that's not true, because once upon a time you played with toys, and you were very imaginative while you played with those toys. And I assure you, whether you're a boy or a girl watching this video right now, if you played with Barbie or G.I. Joe right now at this moment, you will probably not be able to get lost in your storyline the way you did as a child, because you changed, and everything changes. Consciousness changes, and it expands through experience. And as time goes by and as you experience more, you start to shed the ego. Some people who are in touch with their true self sheds the ego. Those who refuse to shed the ego find themselves being very miserable. And as I get older, and as I'm starting to shed my ego, I watch those who are older than me around me, or just peers and people. I watch everybody too, and I'm like, wow, like, some people refuse to give up that ego. Like, they won't, like, you know what I mean? Like, they'll just sit there like, no, that's just the way I am. I'm always going to be like that. And I watch 50-year-olds act like they're 12, and I just be like, oh, God. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. But and it's sad. It's sad because they don't get to see life or experience life on another level, on a higher level. Like, how many people will do what their ego tells them to do, even though they know it's not fulfilling them, it's not satisfying them? So I say that to say that the ego is mellow scared. The ego is definitely, it doesn't want you to grow. Your ego don't want you to grow. It will sit there and be like, yeah, no, we growing, we get more money, and the ego tell you all we need is money. So Mr. Mellow is super scared, and he cries and he gets scared. He doesn't like it. So I'm gonna keep him right here with us, okay? All right. So okay. What I was saying was that the ego doesn't want you to grow up. It'll tell you, like, like, a lot of people think, growing up is just getting older, becoming more responsible, or having accomplished and succeeded in different areas that they didn't, or that some of their peers haven't. But that's not what it really is. What it is it's an evolution process. It's when your consciousness grows up. It's when your mind frame can break that ceiling of, this is who I am. That's when your ego's starting to get threatened. When that person who you thought you were so well, you start thinking, am I really that anymore? Is it okay that I don't want to be that anymore? That's okay. That's your true self. Like, hey, what's up? There's a whole bunch of other things that I value. There's a bunch of whole other things that I value, And it wants you to be He's a pain. So your ego is constantly trying to keep you stuck. Like it'll tell you whatever it is that you want to believe in order to keep you stagnated and stuck in that space of being. So I watch a bunch of people that I know, and I watch them gaining more material and status, but their consciousness and their soul doesn't evolve. I just wanted to touch on that. I wanted to talk about your ego. I want to talk about how, when it comes down to you growing older, it's okay if you don't want to do the same things you did as a child. You don't have to, look at everything the same. And frankly, it's really sad when you do. It's sad to see somebody who's an adult. It doesn't really matter how old they are, but it's sad to see adults who are healthy and capable get older but not wiser. And it's sad to see that I don't believe in that. So that's just not who I am. And I don't care. I still will do this and I'll still do that. And it's sad to see that there's no growth. Not saying that everybody grows at the same level, and not saying that everybody's going to have the same, results in their growth. But it's sad to see people get older and not be willing to grow. It's really sad. So I just would like to ask you guys to consider the fact that there is a true self. There's a true self in you. One that knows you in the future. One that knows your highest potential. One that has seen you in that potential and believes in all those things. There's a true self that knows where you're going, even if you don't know where you're going right now. There's a self inside of you, an awareness and a true self inside of you that's aware of that. And it's going to keep on tapping at your heart. It's going to ask you to grow up. It's going to pull on your strings. It's going to test you, and it's going to push you to limits. But I assure you that every time that you find yourself fighting and resisting that tug and that knock and that pull, you're not doing yourself any favors. That's your ego being threatened. And it's like, no, your growth is killing me. You don't believe my lies anymore. You know what I'm saying? Your ego is what... All right, let's go on to, me. I like to give examples. Your ego is what justifies you beating up your neighbors. Your ego is what justifies you disrespecting people that you don't even know because they did something to you that you won't stand for. And I'm guilty of all of this. I'm telling you guys right now, I'm not judging. Just so we're clear. I learned all this shit because I went through it, and I started to realize, I don't like that side of me. And I'm too grown to be acting like that. And although I'm capable of some stuff, I know, my true self knows that that's not who I really am. And my true self knows that I've conditioned myself because of my atmosphere and my upbringing and all the things that I've stored in my subconscious over the years of growing up has conditioned me to react that way. My true self knows that. So my ego really don't have that much air to breathe. I shut him down a lot, or it down, or whatever you want. In my mind, my ego's a dude. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I shut that down a lot. Like, no, we're not going to act like that. And I want to a lot of the times, even when I'm by myself and I catch myself wanting to vent or wanting to call one of my friends or tell them what I'm going through and being a little like, I feel like this and I can't believe it and I was wronged. And yes, you will be wronged, and people do violate. But we can't control that. We can't control a person trying to get one over us. We can't control a person's mind frame and how they approach us and how they lie to us and how they mislead us or misinform us or purposely try to sabotage us and shit like that. We can't control those people. But your ego, if your ego is anything like mine, your ego is going to tell you you can fuck them up. You put your hands on them because people understand violence. And that's what I used to tell myself all the time. But that was my ego telling me some crazy shit like that. Like, you nuts, and, they think you soft. Punch them in the mouth. They won't think that again. And that's bullshit, because that whole attitude has kept me from a lot of great things that my true self wanted to be around. So I thank God that I changed that. But you understand what I'm saying, So basically your ego is going to constantly tell you, you have to defend what is yours and you're this and, so on and so forth. It's just a lot of petty stuff. And the ego won't take hits like the true self will. The true self is like, let's think about Jesus. Let's just say, as an example. Y'all know I'm not religious, but I'm just going to use an example. Everybody's heard the saying, turn a cheek. And somebody hits you, slaps you on one face, you turn a cheek. Jesus, in the flesh, was exempt of his ego. That ego was long gone. He did not feed into his ego. He didn't breed that ego at all, according to the Bible, according to the biblical scriptures. So basically, that turning the other cheek is the example of no ego. Like, and I know right now, even me, somebody hits me in my face, it's going to be really hard. Somebody even says, it'll be hard for me to turn another cheek, to turn a cheek. But for the most part, that's a prime example. That's an example I'm going to give you for you to understand what is no ego. It doesn't matter what everyone else seen done to me. Like, oh, they all seen him slap you in your face. You turned your other cheek and told him, here, you didn't smack that one or whatever. You understand? The ego is going to amp you like, oh, no, you didn't. Everybody seen him slap you. You better cut his face. Or you better this. Or you better. The ego is always going to justify the wrongs. And it's going to constantly keep you. It wants to keep you stuck. It doesn't want you to heal. It doesn't want you to grow. Okay? Now, you can convince yourself that you are healed and you are growing because you look the part. Because I'm liked. Because I'm respected. Because I'm accepted. And the ego will have you believe that that's all good shit. But there's some people who have used money as a sense of worth for themselves, their own personal self-esteem worth. So the more money they make, the more money they make, the less they have to worry about checking on the true self or the ego, because their money allows them to live up in this role. Oh, we're good, we're established, we're good, we're out here, so on and so. There's people, look at Robert Williams, one of the biggest actors, highest paid actors, killed himself, miserable, wasn't in touch with his true self probably, had, his own stuff going on, probably resented that because there was always constant other things that he could be distracted with, because the more money you got, the more distractions you have. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, those are just examples. I don't really know about Robin Williams, but these are just examples as to how I see it. So the ego could play with you in so many different ways. So the idea, I can't tell you guys how to look at it, because like I told you, I can only tell you how I look at it. But for you to check it out and to consider the fact that there is an ego, there is a self, there is a false self, and there is a true self. Your false self is the one you've created and the one you will probably continue to create as you grow. You can change your ego so long as it's a lie, so long as you constantly finding your purpose, destiny, meaning, worth in material things or outside people or something outside of yourself. That's ego shit. That's all ego shit. Buy me this car, I'm lit. Ego. You better punch him in his face. Whatever. Oh, nah, niggas is violating. Ego. Nah, niggas ain't gonna think word, son, you ran up on my boy, I'ma clap you. Ego. That's all ego. Your ego's bruised. Your ego's threatened. When somebody tells you, this is why people, when I tell people about themselves, their ego's bruised. When somebody tells me about myself, my ego is bruised. Except I know my true self enough to say, this motherfucker's right. They right about this, they right about that. If I feel like they wrong, I'm going to tell them, no, I really don't agree with you. I'm not going to, sit there and vindictively attack them in areas that I feel that they're weak in. That's ego. That's your ego. Attack them back. Say something back. So all the ego does is edge God out. I believe Wayne Dyer coined that. I think. That's where I heard it from. Anyway, I heard it from Wayne Dyer. Dr. Wayne Dyer. Rest in peace. So basically, you know what I'm saying? It edges God out. It doesn't allow for you to say, to look at other people like they're part of you. Because they are. We're all part of each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really relate to anybody unless you've gone through what they've gone through. And we're all humans. All right, granted, some are more bad than others or good than others, or different colors, sizes, shapes, nationalities, creeds, all that stuff. Cool. But we're human. We all need, air in our lungs. We all need our brains to function. We all need our hearts to filter out the the bloodstream. We're human. All the chemicals that we, have in our bodies, I have in my body, you have in yours, and so on and so forth. And we're all made of, the minerals of the earth and so on and so forth. So point of what I'm trying to say is, that might be a little scattered, but point of what I'm saying is that we're not too different. You understand? If we're all human, everybody's unique in their own perception. Everybody has a unique perception. You see things the way you see things. You express them the way you express them. Because you're individual, We're all individual humans. But energetically and soul-wise and destiny and purpose, and we're all together. We're all human, and we're all here on this earth together, So the ego keeps us separate even more on a deeper level. So it's one thing to be separate physically and to have your own perceptions, but the ego holds on to each own's perception as if it's factual truth, like it's ultimate truth, and it's not. You can be colorblind, and we can be looking at the same sky, and you'll see green and I'll see blue. That does not mean that either of us are right, So I believe that's it. As like that, I hope that gave you a little bit of insight on the battles that you might feel inside of you, Like you might go through personal things like, I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to hang out with these people no more. I don't like this anymore. I don't like dressing like this no more. Whatever. Those are parts of your true self trying to rise up, So allow that, embrace your true self. One way to get closer to your true self, just really quickly before we go, is meditation. I'm not religious. I'm just clarifying this. I'm not religious. I am spiritual. And I do believe that we are all the same. I believe that we all, no matter what religion you are, I believe that we're all governed by the same laws of the universe. And that's really how I came to that idea, was my meditative states. Because I used to be such an egomaniac. And a lot of people like to still think I'm an egomaniac and call me an egomaniac. Y'all know who y'all are if y'all watching this, which is fine, because I have been. But for the most part, meditation is what brought me into a quiet enough and a mindful awareness to go deeper and to pull out things that were quietly hiding inside of me. And if you guys care enough about your true self, and if you ever want to meet your true self and possibly, negate constant repetitive cycle behaviors, meditate. Bye.
Handsome face, ugly soul, ego empty and your superficial glow. All my fault, 'cause I already know. Guess I'm just gluttonous for that punishment. You're not broke, but you're broken, trying to put me in a place that pains me deep. I'm a lost cause when your love refuses to love me. I'm a lost cause, but I don't even know what that means. You wanna look good, and you kill me slow, 'cause you drag my heart and you break my soul. You look good, but it kills me slow, 'cause you drag my heart and you break my soul with your handsome face and your ugly soul. Your ego is empty and your superficial glow. You look good, but you kill me slow, 'cause you drag my heart and you break my soul. Handsome face, ugly soul, ego empty and your superficial glow. All my fault, 'cause I already know. Guess I'm just gluttonous for that punishment. You're not broke, but you're broken, trying to put me in a place that pains me deep. I'm a lost cause when your love refuses to love me. I'm a lost cause, and I don't even your superficial glow. You look good, but you kill me slow, 'cause you drag my heart, you break my soul. I'm a lost cause when your love refuses to love me. Said I'm a lost cause, and I don't even know what that means. You wanna look good, and you kill me slow, 'cause you drag my heart, and you break my soul. You look good, but you kill me slow, 'cause you drag my heart, and you break my soul. With your handsome face and your ugly soul, your ego is empty. You look good, and you kill me slow, 'cause you drag my heart, and you break my soul.